On this week's episode of Top of the List, RB and I are discussing the Indiana Jones series. Stay tuned to find out which ones belong in a museum or which ones should be left to history.
Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of Top of the List. And in honor of celebrating the birthday of the great, the incomparable Harrison Ford, we decided to discuss one of his biggest roles, one of the biggest roles of his career, and that is, of course, Dr. Henry Indiana Jones Jr. That's right, Indiana Jones films we will be discussing this week. Some great films, definitely, some not so great. Opinions definitely vary on the four films. What are your thoughts on just off the bat of the Indiana Jones series?
I'm a huge fan of Indiana Jones. I think we decided to do this not just because of Harrison Ford's birthday and, to celebrate his amazing career. I mean, the guy is Blade Runner, he's Han Solo, he's Indiana Jones. I mean, he's got some amazing films out there, along with a few films. I was wondering, have you ever seen The Fugitive, Ryan, with him?
I have not, no.
Okay, highly recommend that one. That is an absolute action-packed thriller. That's a great film to watch with him in it. He kind of plays a Jack Ryan type in that movie. Yeah, I'm really excited for the Indiana Jones films. I think we have a couple films that will probably have identical scores, and then a couple films that will have very different scores on. So I'm interested to see what you think.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. So you want to dive right in, though, to what I think we're definitely going to agree the most on of these films, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think I could speak for us both. This is one of the greatest films ever made. You know, easily top five for me. Um, it's one of the best action adventures ever put to the screen. And if you're thinking about action filmmaking, I know we've talked about it before when we talked about The Winter Soldier. That was kind of a landmark in stunt choreography. And I think we've also kind of mentioned in that episode, we talked about Terminator 2 Judgment Day was a landmark. And I don't know if you agreed with me on this, Ryan, Mad Max Fury Road,
You
also a
know,
landmark.
I mean, we'll keep this conversation a little bit short because we are focusing on Indiana Jones, but I don't know I necessarily agree with that film as a landmark action film. I would never necessarily call a remake a landmark action film because it's based on the great original Mad Max films.
That's itself a landmark, I guess, in
Yes,
a way.
that
Yeah.
is more what I would say. And I mean, I think they upped the ante in the new film,
Yeah.
Fury Road, with Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it on the same tier as a Terminator 2 or a Winter Soldier, or of course, as we come full circle here back to a Raiders of the Lost Ark, which, I mean, I agree with you, arguably one of the greatest action adventure films, if not the greatest action adventure film of all time. I think we should start off just by giving our scores here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have the same score. I'm going to give this one a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, could not agree more with you. One of the iconic pieces of cinema out there. There are many iconic pieces of cinema, of course, but this one definitely a 10 out of 10, stands the test of time, can be watched again and again, whether it's at home through Netflix or you have the DVD, which so many of us have, DVD, Blu-ray, or even when they go, every so often they re-air it on the big screen, and those are some of the best events as well, to go and relive and see Indy on the big screen as he was meant to be seen through the eyes of Spielberg.
Absolutely. I'm really glad you mentioned Spielberg, another directorial film by Spielberg here. And I think we should talk about a little bit of the background of this film, Ryan. I know you're very familiar with this, just like I am. George Lucas involved in this one as well, manning the story. And if I think everybody kind of pretty much knows that he wanted to make films after American Graffiti based on the serials he grew up watching when he was younger. He had one idea for this farm boy that was in this weird space opera kind of tale, and that would obviously go on to become Star Wars, which also had Harrison Ford in it. And the other one followed an archaeologist named Indiana Jones, and two of the greatest ideas ever in mankind. I mean, honestly.
Absolutely. And bravo to Lucas and to Spielberg as well on, just about everything they've touched that's turned to gold. But this one especially, holds a special place in my heart. Indiana Jones, just like I said, it stands the test of time. I've not sat down, at least with Raiders, and watched this movie with one person who's got up and said, I don't like this. As much as we love Star Wars, you can sit down with Star Wars and people say, I'm not a big fan. I have never sat down and watched Raiders with anyone who said, I did not like that film.
Yeah, I think we can make this. There may be like a few people out there that don't like it, but I at least have not ever encountered anyone like that. This is one of those few movies where it's objectively one of the most thrilling, exciting. Like you come in and you start watching it and you can't stop. It's just you're brought into it. And I think that there's a few elements. I think I'll just list a few elements we should probably cover in this segment. This segment might be a little longer than the other ones, but I mean, this is a landmark film. So a few things I think we should go over, and you tackle whichever one you think is the most important, but I definitely think the music by John Williams comes into play, character work, the acting, the directing. So I think maybe we should just kind of go chronologically, or what do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I'll start though with the acting. I think that's a great place to start.
Okay.
I don't think there's one bad performance in this film. And I think that plays brilliantly into my point on this film, why I love this film so much. There's not one moment where you could look away from the screen. I think you said that. So just sort of echoing it, there are films where you can get up, you can wait, watching it on TV. You don't mind if there's a commercial break to go get snacks. This is a movie that needs to be watched start to finish because you cannot miss anything. There is not one part of this movie that I'd want cut out. And I think that all centers back to the acting, in that you are completely bought in with every actor on screen, whether it's Harrison Ford, of course, is Indy. I think Karen Allen is absolutely brilliant as Marion. I love John Rhys Davies, but personally, I love the character Salah. I think he provides some great character acting as well as some great comic relief in this film. The actors, I don't know the names of them off the top of my head. Those are the three. But even, you're sort of evil, your Nazis and Belloc, they're such great characters that you're so locked in this whole movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it wouldn't work if Harrison Ford couldn't carry it. And I know I don't know if this is a controversial opinion or not, but this is his best role of all time, I think. Even better than Han Solo, even better than, what he does in Blade Runner or a few other of his famous films. This is, if you look at the guy, from minute one, I think let's start at the beginning of the film. This just backs up my point, or at least the way we both feel about Harrison Ford in this film. From minute one in this movie, you know everything you need to know about this guy. And for the minute one in this movie, there's not really any dialogue spoken by Harrison Ford for a long time.
How about that opening sequence? I mean,
Yeah.
I know you're gonna touch on it a little bit more, but you want to talk about an opening sequence that gets you locked into a movie. How amazing is that? The going through that temple that's full of the booby traps and getting that golden idol and watching, this man just work his way through it, outsmart, these booby traps. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And the cinematography is fantastic. And you're so right. The score done by John Williams, incredible, building the suspense up. The few pieces of dialogue that Indy does have, sort of directing the guide, or talking to himself when he does the switch between the idol and the bag of sand. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and there's so much little tiny moments. And I want to start at the beginning of the film. I think this is a decision that Spielberg made, because he's a director, obviously. And, you get the Paramount, the classic Paramount mountain picture, and it says Paramount Pictures, and then it quickly fades in to the film, and the first shot of the film is a mountain in the outline of the Paramount thing, and that happens with every Indiana Jones movie. It turns into a mountain, and I just love those little touches. And then from there on, we do not see our character from the front. We don't see his face for a good amount of time. He's this dark figure walking through the forest, and they walk past this horrifying I think it's a statue that scares these guys, and they run off and they get so scared. Indy sees it and he just keeps going. And right away, you're locked in. You're like, this guy does not fear anything. And, you're going through there and he's walking through the forest. and then you see the poison dart that's on in the tree, and the guy pulls it out, or Indy pulls it out, and he just kind of looks at it and then tosses it aside, and the other guys are like scared out of their minds. They're sweating. They're like, we're being hunted right now. And then like Indy's not even scared, and then they get to what I think is, I just gotta say, the greatest character reveal ever put in a film, better than anything I've ever seen in a movie. When we first see our hero Indiana Jones, you see the guy is going to betray him. He pulls out the gun, and then all of a sudden, and then he turns and then gets him, and he runs away, and then out of the shadows, Indy comes out. But you don't hear the classic theme. You don't hear the dun 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 dun. You don't hear that. It's a dark sound. It's dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
And like I think that's just beautiful filmmaking.
Could not agree more with you. It is an incredible sequence. The entire opening of this film, I think you can say, from, of course, the mountain, the iconic mountain, going through the the booby trap temple. Indy is escaping. He loses the idol to Belloc, but then even the running to start the plane. And we learn a little bit about Indy as well when we have the snake on his lap in the airplane. Oh, it's my pet. Well, get it away from me,
I hate snakes.
Yeah, it's great character development, all done without Indy really having to give a major piece of dialogue. As you mentioned, we as an audience are brought in, are captivated by this man's story, and we're learning about him without him having to say, my name is Dr. Henry Indiana Jones, and I'm an archaeologist, So
Absolutely.
it's really great. And then, you get to a slower part in the film. You go to his college, and he's contacted by these men who, I believe, government agents who are.
Yeah. Before you go there, though, I want to point out a little thing.
Go ahead.
I just rewatched it, and I think you said you watched it a few weeks back. And I don't know if you ever noticed this, but his whole class is like basically all girls. Did you notice this? And then there's the one girl that blinks and "love you" is on her eyelid.
Oh yeah. And I believe that's true of every scene that you see in all four of these films where he is teaching at the college. Yeah, no, he sort of plays this dreamy heartthrob professor. So I mean, I love it. I think it's awesome. It adds to the comedy. And but it's just those little things that keep you locked in. And this is an action adventure film. Why should I care about this guy lecturing to his class? But I mean, between his dialogue and the cuts, once again the cinematography, between something comedic like that and all these, female students who are dreamily looking into this professor's eyes, I think it's brilliant. And then you get to the dialogue, as we mentioned, and you're getting locked into the story. You're building up, they're looking for the staff of Ra, and they're working with Dr. Ravenwood, who you were, and it just keeps you locked in. These are things that you wouldn't expect a part of a movie. You'd expect these to be slower scenes, but they're not. You're so engaged in this film from minute one. And then I think we get, as cool as Indy's intro is in this film, I think we get almost just as cool of an introduction to Marion in the tavern in Nepal, where she's drinking with all the thugs in the bar. That is such an awesome intro for a character.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you said, another insane character interaction or introduction there, like one of the best of all time. Spielberg is just amazing, making all the right choices in this movie. And, I think I want to touch on that point you were making. I was thinking while you were talking about that there, when the U.S. agents are trying to recruit Indy for this expedition, this is a exposition scene, and if our viewers don't know, exposition is when, you kind of have to say a lot of information to the audience, talk about, like, it's kind of just like a information dump, if there's no other better phrase I can think of at the moment. And even in this film, there is a lot of exposition scenes, but Spielberg handles it so expertly that you're drawn in. And I'll mention another exposition scene later when we talk about the poison dates sequence. But I do want to say here, there's a lot of little things that make you really respect Harrison Ford's charisma and his intelligence as Indiana Jones in this. And you kind of get a little bit deeper into his character too, when, he's revealing what the Ark looks like. He opens it up to the page and shows them what it looks like. And they're saying, what's this coming out of it? And I love this line. It tells you a lot about Indiana Jones at this point, where he says lightning, fire, power of God, or something like that. and he just kind of dismisses it like he almost doesn't believe. But then again, you've learned throughout these movies, he's a man of facts. He always wants to have things preserved, and he's a noble guy. He doesn't want to do it just for money. He wants to do it to preserve artifacts, and I think that's a great part about his character. So, but yeah, when we first meet Marion, I do want to say this is one of the strongest female leads in a film I've ever seen. This is a problem I think we both have with a few of the other Indiana Jones movies, but in this film, she can handle herself. She outdrinks that guy, which I think we both love that part. And she has this backstory, and as soon as Indy walks in, what I think you already told me earlier what the line was.
Yeah, I always knew you'd come back walking through my door. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
so
there's history between these two,
and that's the mystique of this film and that relationship too. We never actually hear what the history is. We hear bits and pieces about how she fell in love when Indy was studying under her father, but we never actually hear their history. We just know that there's that former amorous connection between the two. Yeah. And I think that's what's so great is there are so many films. We talked about it last week with Back to the Future that sort of an amorous connection would be out of character, and films focus on it. We talked about it with Doc Brown and Clara Clayton in Back to the Future Part 3. This film, it doesn't hover on it too long, which is great. We understand that it was there. We understand that there's chemistry between those two, and that's all we need to know. Because really, Debbie Allen, correct, is the actress's name? Is it Debbie Allen or Karen Allen?
I think Karen Allen, I want to say.
Okay. But really, she's just such a badass character. She doesn't need to be just Indy's love interest, which a lot later on in the film, these female leads become. She is her own character, and she can handle herself. We see it later on in this film as well. She is such a badass in this film.
Yeah.
And I think, she is fantastic as a female lead. And what makes it so special as well, I understand this film came out in 1981, but the fact that it takes place in the 1930s and to have a strong female character in the 1930s when maybe women were less represented and thought, more of, extensions of their husbands, which, in the history, that's what they would have been. To have a character like that is so awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love that whole sequence. And I mean, this kind of leads us to our first, besides, the whole boulder sequence and the escape from the temple at the beginning, this is our first big action set piece where the Nazis come in and they try to burn Marion with the guy, the creepy guy that wears the gloves. And
yeah, I was actually just about to Ronald Lacey.
Okay.
So I just pulled up his name. He has a smaller role in this film. He's not our only villain, but such a great, menacing, evil villain. I think he is fantastic. Ronald Lacey in this film. And, talking about that bar scene, really, I want to circle back. You talked about you being a fan of Westerns. Really sort of a new look at like an Old West saloon shootout. It is an awesome scene. Action-packed, well thought out, well choreographed in the fighting. It is incredible.
Yeah, there's I mean, we could go into the little tiny details, kind of like, the fire that lights up and Indy's head is on the bar and the fire's coming for him and he has to get out of it really quick. Mm-hmm. Just little things that they set up like that are pretty amazing. Or the amulet getting really hot and then the guy trying to pick it up and it burns into his hand.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to talk about. Yeah, Ronald Lacey grabbing that as it burns his hand so he can have the map on his hand.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, I love when he says, Fräulein, where is the amulet?
Yes.
It's so cool.
So conniving, so evil. And I mean, added on the fact, like I said, the film's in 1980. We know who the Nazis are, which just adds this even deeper depth of darkness and, evil. He's evil, I mean, we understand that, but they don't just brand him as a Nazi and say this man is a Nazi, therefore is evil. They get an actor to embody that as well. And, which also I think makes it that much cooler that, yes, Indy is getting his agenda done, but he's kicking the ass of some Nazis, which I always love to see.
Me too. Yeah, I love that. And especially Indiana Jones doing the ass kicking. I mean, no one better to do it. And I think this kind of leads us to where he pays her the $3,000 in this scene, and then it obviously gets burned up in the fight and she doesn't get it. She says, well, now you're my goddamn partner. and and I love when they go there, and then we go to the famous. I think Indiana Jones is famous for the over the map, the red line from their traveling.
The coolest cutscenes. I love those. I love how it's utilized. It's sort of translucent there. You got the plane flying or the boat traveling down the Nile as you see the map going, brilliantly executed.
Absolutely, and when they land, we meet one of your favorite characters. You could say he's the comic relief, and he has a lot of depth. He's one of Indy's most loyal friends.
Yeah, John Rhys Davies playing Sala. Huge fan of Sala. I think his actions in this role, and then he comes up again in The Last Crusade, are fantastic. I love his role, and this is just an introduction to him, and he's fantastic. The whole sequence in Egypt, I think, is awesome.
Yeah,
Everything about this film is awesome.
I think that's a perfect what I've been wanting to say even while we were planning this episode. I gotta say there's only a few movies out there that I will say are perfect. I think that you could say a movie's a classic. You could say a movie is one of your favorites, but there's a few movies out there that are perfect. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the original Alien by Ridley Scott is one of those movies I think is perfect. Terminator 2, I think, is every scene perfect.
Absolutely.
And, this is one of those movies where every single scene is just, you couldn't change it to make it better. It's the best version of that scene that it could ever be.
Could not agree more with you.
Yeah, and I think the main thing here is there's a lot of little behind the scenes thing when there's little details. Again, I got to touch on the little details. I love Spielberg was on another level in this movie because they're eating the dates, and they first introduced the dates when him and Marion are walking. Oh, look, you eat them. And then later that comes back when they've been poisoned and after he thinks Marion dies. But anyways, they're walking, and he's carrying all these things, and Marion's talking to him, and he sees these guys coming at him with swords, and he drops it. And then Marion bends down to pick it over, and she just misses the blade going over her head. And Indiana Jones has to fight him, and then the guy's with the sword, and he kind of dodges it, and he strikes the sword, and the fruit goes through the sword, and lots of great things here. And I think it's all capped off. I'll let you talk more about it with, I don't know if you knew it or not, but it's just improvised when he gets up against this awesome swordsman. He flips the sword, then he just takes out the gun, poof, and then turns around and goes, it was improvised, dude. It was really hot, and Harrison Ford was frustrated that it had been taking them so long, and he just says, hey, Steven, what if I just shoot this guy? And it worked. It's the best part of the movie.
It does. And that, more sort of character development of Indiana Jones, sort of Eastern versus Western war tactics there. But I absolutely love it. I did know that it was improvised. I think we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
But yeah, just truly an awesome scene, further embodying who Indiana Jones is and what sort of a badass he is,
Absolutely. And
yeah,
Marion dies here. I think that's another big twist.
That's true.
In a blockbuster film.
The van, correct?
Yep.
Or the truck blows up.
The truck blows up, and he thinks that she's in the back of it.
Yep. Because they carry her away in the wicker basket. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We see sort of Indy slip into this misery in this film. After the demise of this person, who he truly had an amorous connection with. And I think even more so than that, because Marion, once again, unlike some of the other female leads in these films, is someone who matched Indiana in cunning, in courage, in strength. I think, that's why we feel for Indy too, and we feel for the loss there of Marion, because she's such an awesome character.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought up the wicker basket there too, because there's just this shot that I noticed for the first time. That's another thing about this movie. You could watch it over and over again, and you'll see this little thing that you just love that you never noticed before. And for me, when I watched it recently, it's when he's trying to chase her down and they're carrying her in the basket. And then there's just this great shot of him running through this hallway, and he runs right up to the camera where it's just his eyes, and he looks around and he's panicked. And then the camera turns, and everybody in this square is holding up a basket, and he has to file through all the baskets. It's just even little things like that it's so exciting,
Yeah. So, this is really a magnificent film. And, of course, lucky for all of us, Marion is alive. And we get now to Indy and, everyone they sort of start, you know, getting a headway. They find out that the Nazis are digging in the wrong place.
Yep.
But you
And
know,
that's the other thing too. Sorry to interrupt you,
go
but
ahead. Go ahead.
this is another exposition scene when they go to this old guy to analyze the amulet that he has, and you know didn't have one. They only have one side, where the one that Indy has both sides, so they're digging in the wrong place. But the whole start of the scene starts with that guy that has the monkey, and you know the monkey is with Indy, and he follows the monkey, and then the guy poisons the dates, and that's the first shot you see. And the whole time they're getting this exposition of, you know, where the map room is, and you know what happens with the staff. His staff is too long, they're in the wrong place. The whole time Indy is holding in his hand one of those poison dates, and he's about to take a bite, and then the guy says, wait, look at this, and he puts, you know, he lowers it, and then at the end of the scene they figure out they're ahead of the game, they can go find it, and he tosses it up in celebration to eat it, and then Sallah just goes, catches it because he sees the monkey ate one and he died, and he goes, bad dates. And, you know, there's just little things like that where it's intense, even though you're just learning a lot of information.
Absolutely. And once again, you know, adding to that intensity and that intensity of that scene as well is the John Williams score.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. So then I'm going to move to another, you know, brilliant scene. So they're digging in the right place, but Belloc and the Nazis find him, and they throw him down into the cave. I'm sorry, into the temple down.
Well, I think you skipped one little part. Sorry, I don't mean to talk over you, but yeah, so they find the right place, they drop in, and you know, Indy infiltrates it, and he gets the staff. And I just want to say, you know, that whole idea of the beam of light coming through and shining, and then he does, when he gets out of there, he isn't captured yet. He finds Marion, and this isn't a critical choice that we see Indiana Jones. He's really, you know, thinking ahead, and he has to make a tough choice here. He finds Marion. He kisses her. She's alive. They're happy to see each other. He takes off the thing that's, you know, keeping her from talking, the mouth thing. I don't know what you would call that, but he takes it off and he says, "Oh, I'm so happy. Let me get you out of here." And then he kind of just looks down and thinks, and he says, "I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to tie you up again, sweetheart." And then he puts it back in, and she goes, "What are you doing? Let me go." Yep. He says, "Well, if I take you with me, they're gonna start combing this place for me, and I can't have that right now. I need to find, you know, the Well of Souls." So I think, you know, that's a hard decision for him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So once again, you know, we just keep on talking about how great the story, the acting, the cinematography, you know, the story is of this film. But, you know, some brilliant visuals as well. You think about when they're digging and the lightning storm hits.
It feels biblical.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you took the words right from my mouth, as if this is something that is not supposed to be unearthed. But you know, really the visuals are well done in this film as well. 1980 special effects, like we said though with Back to the Future, something that would stand up still today, that you could watch and understand what is being executed there, even though the lightning strikes aren't necessarily as high quality as we'd see in a film today. Like you said, we understand what story is trying to be told here.
Yeah, and you know, eventually he does find the Ark and sends it back up. And it's, you know, all the cinematography just keeps carrying through. And, you know, when he goes down there, I love the little thing when they first uncover the thing, the Well of Souls, and then they lift up the lid to it. And, you know, Sallah says, he looks down there and he sees a bunch of snakes, and he goes, it had to be snakes. And, you know, it's his worst fear, our hero's worst fear has become realized in his final step to get what he's been wanting the whole movie. And then one of the funniest lines in the movie is Sallah looks down there, he goes, asks, because that's what the snakes are. Asked. He goes, very dangerous. You go first.
Yes. Once again, John Rhys Davies, brilliant delivery. Love the line and the acting behind it too. We talked about last week how Christopher Lloyd plays Doc Brown. You know, it's not just the delivery; it's his actions too. And I think that's what's so great about Sallah as a character.
Yeah, and they break out of there, and there's a lot that happens, but we got to keep going. And they get to, you know, one of my favorite action sequences when they break out of the Well of Souls, him and Marion, and they
first of all, let me just jump back. The breakout of the Well of Souls to me is one of the coolest scenes in this film as well. The escape scene, really top notch, well executed. Once again, you know, just classic Indy, you know, being I guess ingenuitive, if that's a word. I think that's a word.
Yeah.
You know, how to get out of there, and you know, they blow the wall, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he climbs a statue and pushes it over into the wall, and
I mean, just really well. And they figure out that the asps are afraid of the fire, so that's how they keep the snake. Just, things that we wouldn't think about, but
Yeah.
it just further, shows us Indiana Jones. Yes, he's an adventurer, but he's a smart man too. He's able to figure things out like this.
Yeah, and then it's so intense. The torches start going out, and she says, "Indy, the fire's going out," and it's so great. And they get to like one of my favorite. I think this is probably from the escape sequence to this part with the plane to the car chase. It's like the greatest few, like, I don't know how long it is, maybe like a half hour or like maybe even less, but it's like the greatest I've ever seen on film. It's so they get to this plane sequence and they're trying to get on the plane, and Marion gets caught in the cockpit, and he knocks this one guy out, but then the big guy sees Indiana Jones and he has to take down this huge guy. And that's the other thing about this movie we didn't talk about. This is like a PG movie. It's bloody. He gets caught up in the rotary
the propeller.
propeller.
Oh, absolutely,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and that's a scene that you're just, yes, this guy's a bad guy, but you're just like holding your breath as you see it come behind him, and he ducks.
Oh yeah.
Oh, man, yeah.
So cool.
There's so many scenes to talk about in this film. The escape there, the battle scene at the airport, I believe, and there's a chase in a driving chase too, I believe, after this, right? They're chasing them.
Yeah. So let me tee you up for that one. So he gets on the plane, and she's trying to shoot, and she lights something on fire, and then the plane's about to explode because the fire's coming there, and he gets her out just in time, and they run away, and the plane explodes. And then they cut over to Belloc, and they're kind of already celebrating, and then he looks over there, and they're like, fire, and he goes, Indiana Jones, like, so cool. He's like, he knows it's Indiana Jones already just from the explosion. And then they meet with Sala, and he's like, oh, my friends, I'm so happy you're alive. And then he says, quickly, they just put the Ark on a truck, and then Indy, it's just a silhouette, but you could hear so much in his voice. He goes, what truck? And then you see him. How are you gonna follow him? And then he gets on the horse, and he chases down the truck on the horse. For the greatest action sequence ever put on film, I think, is like him getting on the horse, jumping on the truck, infiltrating and knocking out those Nazis, and then him and that guy fighting for the steering wheel, almost running into the thing, and then he pushes the guys out, and then the guys from the back of the truck try to come in and kill him, and then one shoots him in the arm, and then the other one pushes him out the window. He goes underneath the truck. He has to use his weapon to come back up.
Yep. And that's something that's classic Indy. That like I said, some of these films are better than others, but that's those chase scenes, car chase scenes in these old 1940s military cars are what make Indy films. I think their signature, and this was the first one, and it is truly magnificent.
Yeah, and it's like a whole, like, you feel like so. It's like one of the awesomest moments ever, because he comes back up the truck, climbs through, and he punches that guy right. He climbs back into the thing after he's been under the truck. He punches that guy, punches him again, and they're fighting, and then he eventually gets hold of the vehicle, and then you see him racing with the determination on his face, and then John Williams' awesome thing, dun 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 dun, dun. You're just like, it's awesome. It's so awesome.
It is so amazing. Yeah, this film, truly brilliant. So I think we come to a head. We get, Indy gets the Ark, and they're sailing away with it. The German U-boat, as we discussed, infiltrates the ship, and they get the Ark. Indy stows away on the Ark, and then we come to a head. You were talking about it before we started filming. One of Indy's greatest lines, greatest moments, when they're walking the Ark in this this Nazi naval base. Indy is there. Go ahead. You can give the line.
Okay. Yeah. So he infiltrates the Navy base. He's wearing the costume and everything, and then they start to take the Ark to do the ritual to open it up. And one of the Nazi guys, he says, I don't know how I feel about doing this Jewish ritual. He says that, and he says it like such a dirty word, and you're like, gosh, Indy, you got to get this guy. And he chases them down, and they're all walking single file in the desert. And then all of a sudden, you see them walking, and then the shot pans over, and you see Indiana Jones holding an RPG, and he says, Belloc, let her go, or else I'm going to blow up the Ark. And it's just so cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, awesome scene again, awesome delivery, awesome dialogue. Once again, the cinematography, brilliant. But we come to a head at this film. Indy and Marion captured, tied up, and the Ark is opened. And I think this, talk about, like we said, a PG film, truly a chilling, dark sequence. And really sort of, I think the messages of these films that, these relics, as Indy says, they should be in a museum. They're not there to create power. And we see it with the Nazi machine, Nazi regime trying to utilize this for power. We see it again with the Holy Grail in Last Crusade. We even see it in the Civil, or I'm sorry, not the Civil War, the Cold War in Crystal Skull. It's Indy sort of defending the integrity of these artifacts as artifacts. They're not meant to be used as power, and we see the consequences. In what's truly a horrific scene put onto cinema when we open the Ark, and as Indy said, "Look away! Don't look at it."
Yeah, and all their faces and bodies melt.
Yeah.
And you know what? Some people might say it looks cheesy. I think it looks terrifying. I remember
Couldn't
watching it and
agree
being
more
horrified.
with you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's to the point where it's something that's biblical. It's something that maybe we don't know how to fathom what something like that would look like. So seeing something like that as it was put in screen with the bodies melting and then you see just the skeleton, I think it's totally believable. And like I said, I think it stands the test of time. It's well executed.
Absolutely. And he gets the Ark taken back to the United States, where our hero's victorious. But even then, it's a bittersweet victory because the U.S. kind of takes the Ark, and I think we find out in Crystal Skull that it is Area 51 that they took the Ark to. And he says there's top people researching
top men, I
top
believe is
men.
the word. Yeah. It's being examined by top men.
And then Indy's reply and to Marion when he says, "Damn bureaucrat." It's just like kind of showing the U.S. is not even the good guys in this movie to an extent.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we spent quite a bit of time talking about this film. Of course, it's well deserving.
Yeah.
We both give this one a 10 out of 10. I don't know. Of course, there's more I can say about it, but anything else you want to highlight here on this film, Dom, that we haven't already said?
Oh, geez. I don't know, man. I feel like we covered so much. We could make a whole episode about this movie. But I mean, we both love this movie. It's absolute classic. If you haven't seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, go rent it, go get the Blu-ray, do whatever you can, go see it. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and I'll give a plug here. Of course, you want the Blu-ray. It's a great option, but if you're looking for a quick movie night, all 4 Indiana Jones films on Netflix streaming as well. So it makes, I will say, I did it all in one weekend. It makes a great weekend. It's really enjoyable.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people have Netflix, so it's great that they're easily accessible. So with that said, let's move on to the second film in the Indiana Jones saga, we could say. And, this is one we're going to deviate on a little bit here. I think this is your least favorite, and this is not my favorite, but it's not as bad as I think you think it is. So take it away, Ryan. Temple of Doom.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to start with my score on this film. I give this film a 5.5 out of 10. I was extremely let down. I did watch these films in order and was extremely, extremely let down by Temple of Doom. I found this film corny. I thought it had too much comedy in it. I thought our female lead here was extremely weak. And I think going back and rewatching the films a couple weeks ago, I think one of my major problems with it, one of the awesome things about Indiana Jones is I think the backing of history. You have the 1930s Nazis in Raiders of the Lost Ark. In the Last Crusade, okay, now the Nazi regime is at its high point, but once again, it's the Nazis against Indy, this sort of, Mr. Americana trying to save the day for the U.S. You even have it with the Cold War undertones and the Russians in Temple of the Crystal Skull, or Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, beg your pardon. This film, it just kind of feels out of place, like it's forced. Like, okay, Raiders of the Lost Ark was great. Now let's just make a movie of Indy doing outlandish, crazy stuff with sort of a ditzy, female lead who he's gonna, fall for. And of course you have short stack. Is that what they call him? His adopted son. Short Round, thank you. His adopted son who's there purely for comedic relief. And I mean, he's funny. I get it, but it just seemed out of place for an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying here. I'll say the parts that I think that we agree on, or at least I agree with you on. And let me preface that with my score. I'm gonna give this one like an 8.5. Yeah, I think 8.5. I was thinking maybe an
Ah,
8, maybe an 8, but it's definitely, I think it's a great film. Is it as good as Raiders of the Lost Ark? Absolutely not. No film can really, not even if they make Indiana Jones 5, it won't be as good as Raiders of the Lost Ark. I can guarantee you
which,
that.
from what I've been seeing, it's 2022. They have planned Indiana Jones 5, correct? And I think
Yeah.
they're going to try and return the cast of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. More on thoughts on that a little bit later.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to Crystal Skull. But I enjoy this film. I will say what we do agree on. What's her name? Willie. I can't remember her last name, but Willie, the love interest in this film, she's nowhere close to Marion from the first film. She is not able to handle herself. She's afraid of everything. She's kind of annoying at some points. She does have a few funny lines, but she's just kind of more of a nuisance than anything. And oh, one thing I did want to touch on that maybe some people I didn't know, at least when I first watched this. This is actually a prequel to the to Raiders of the Lost Ark. Did you know that, Ryan?
I did not, but that actually, I was, like I said, this felt out of place for me, and that would make sense. I'm watching this as if it's taking place after the events of Raiders, but that is good to know, and I did not know that.
And that's what it was written to be because they wanted to go in a different direction with this film. By them, I mean George Lucas and Spielberg. So
You
they
can
wanted to
definitely
go,
say it was a different direction.
yeah, and they wanted to go darker with this one, and I think it's 100% darker than the first. If you think about the heart rip out scene, and the some of the occultist things are, and this is, I don't know if you knew this, Ryan. This is the reason they created the PG-13 rating. This is the first film that was granted that rating 2 months after its release. Um, and I do enjoy this film mostly because it's what I've come to love. Harrison Ford is incredible in this film. Short Round, I love in this film. I love the relationship him and Indy have. How he's kind of learning from Indy, and he's kind of a mini Indiana Jones when he saves the kids, and he does the heroics, and he has the hat and everything. But it's not like Indiana Jones. He's still a little different. I enjoy a lot about this film. I I I don't know. I can't get my thoughts organized right now, but yeah, I will say that Willie is definitely a damsel in distress, and I will say that it feels like the romance is a little forced, even though I love the dialogue when like they're kind of have that tension in between each other. He's like, "Oh," and she goes, "Indiana Jones, you think I'm that easy?" And he goes, "You think I'm that easy?" He said, and then because he closes the doors. I love it, but he closes the door. He says, I don't want to preface my research with any bias, but I'll let you know in the morning what I think. And he closes the doors like he's about to do her, and, and like I don't know. I like that part. I think it's funny, but the romance is like one of the weakest parts.
It was out of place. I'm sorry. It was totally out of place. And like I said, I can understand it a little bit more now that you're telling me that it's a prequel, because I did not know that. But it felt so out of place, so forced. The relationship between Harrison Ford and Kate Capshaw, who played Willie in
Mm-hmm.
this film, was, I felt, just so rushed. And we had this great female lead in the form of Marion Ravenwood, who's a badass, who we didn't touch that much on the romance. There was a connection between them. That's all we touched on. And this film, it's just cheesy, almost like puppy love between these two people.
Yeah,
It's Indy sort of getting laid to get laid. And
yeah,
it's, I guess that's sort of Indiana Jones. But after Raiders of the Lost Ark, I was hoping he was still going to be in love with Marion. And
yeah,
like I said,
yeah.
I understand. I get that, but
Uh-huh.
I don't feel like Indiana Jones is or up until this film was like a philanderer. She's almost like a Bond girl, so to speak. Kate Capshaw's character, and that's
Yeah.
James Bond's thing. To me, that wasn't Indiana Jones's thing, and until seeing this film, and I was like, oh, I guess he is sort of a.
He's suave. I see. That's where I disagree with you. He's
So no,
suave.
he's suave. I understand that, but I mean, he clearly had a connection with Marion. Just because people find him suave and debonair doesn't mean that he acts on that. And I understand. Once again, you said it's a younger him. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's so if you look at the title card in Raiders of the Lost Ark, it takes place in 1936, and in the first scene, which doesn't even measure up to the first scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I'll say, even though I do enjoy him chasing for the antidote and she's chasing for the diamond, and then the car chase, it's exciting. It's Indiana Jones action. I can't say that it's bad. It's really exciting to me. I know maybe you don't agree, but I will say, before I hand it over to you, I will say that she doesn't really have a reason to be there other than he's just kind of dragging her along.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot stand the opening sequence in this film.
Oh, and
Once
I
again,
forgot to say, this
yeah,
one's 1985. Sorry, but continue. Yes.
yes.
Or
I
sorry,
can
1935.
35.
Sorry.
Yeah, a year before the events of Raiders of the Lost Ark. The film
Correct.
was released, I believe, it was either 84 or 85. So
Yeah.
yeah, so understood where you were going there. 1984 was the release date. Anyway, jumping back, I hate the opening sequence in this film. Cannot stand it. It's corny. It's hokey. Them running across the room. She's looking for the diamond, and oh no, someone kicks it, and he's looking for the antidote, and oh no, he loses it. I thought it was so stupid. Also, you have the intro before even that. You've got Anything Goes. The whole dance
Yeah.
sequence. So unnecessary.
I just watched it recently, and my mom said, "Oh, you could skip this part."
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
It
you
was
can.
so unnecessary. But I mean, there are some neat scenes in India in this film. Some that come to mind. Finally, first of all, to me, it takes forever for some action adventure to happen in this film. You've got a lot of comedy. You've got, they're at the banquet and, they're eating the chilled monkey brains and the
I like
snakes.
that part.
I thought it went on forever, and it's so dumb, and it's just back and forth. Short Round's looking at Willie, and Willie looking at Short Round as everyone else is eating all this food. I thought it was
It's an
dumb,
exposition scene. It's the same thing
but
as they did with the dates and
it
in
did
Raiders.
not keep me. It did not keep me nearly as locked in as it did in Raiders.
I can see what you're saying, but here's the aspect of it. He's talking about the I think it's Pankut, the palace, and the tribe that used to be there, and they're there with the Maharaj sitting at the table, and he's trying to talk about all the ritualistic things that went on in the past, and there's this tense conversation going on. And then there's Willie and Short Round, and they're trying to get something to eat, but it's the monkey brains, it's the eyeball soup, it's the snake babies that come out of the snake carcass, and I think that's just like to keep us interested in the way. But like you said, maybe it doesn't work for some people, and I know that there has been some criticism saying that this is kind of politically incorrect because
Absolutely.
But
I'm glad.
here's my
I'm glad
go ahead.
you approached the elephant in the room there.
Yeah. Some people say it's politically incorrect, but like, here's my defense of this. So when he's in the what do I call it? The village that they say they took the sacred rock from, that's all accurate in my opinion, and as you can see, that's all accurate. But once he gets to the Pankut temple or the kingdom or the palace,
Palace, Pankut Palace.
Yeah, the palace, and once you get to there, I think they discarded this line that would have really helped. That after they are eating all that ugly food, there's Indy has this really important line that I think it's in the director's cut, but I just read it online before we started shooting. Indy says, I think they were trying to stray us away, to scare us away with all the disgusting food, because he says because a real Hindu wouldn't ever touch meat because Hindus are vegans, they're vegetarians. So I think that's a line they should have kept in, and that part hasn't aged well. But if you think about it, they put all that disgusting food out there so they would scare away Indiana Jones and his accomplices, so they wouldn't discover the Temple of Doom.
Yeah. Finally we do get some action adventure scene after the dining scene. The assassin's in Indy's room and he escapes the garret.
And he hangs him on the ceiling fan. I love that.
Ceiling fan, yeah. No, that's a neat scene. And then, they go to Marion's room and he finds a secret passageway, and then
how about the spikes coming down from they get trapped in the room, him and Short Round, and then she has to come save him. They have to walk through all those bugs. I love that.
She has to reach it.
Yeah, she has to reach in the bugs, and she doesn't want to do it, but she does do it, and they save him just at the last second.
It's a great scene.
Yeah.
That's poorly executed as far as I'm concerned.
How?
Because it's a great tense scene, and meanwhile you have comedy. You have her freaking out because ew, there's a bug I can't touch, and you have Short Round screaming, I didn't touch anything. I didn't.
It's great. It's classic Indiana Jones. It's classic Indiana Jones, and
It did
then
not connect for me.
then they come in and she's, it's kind of aggravating a little bit, but she screws up again, and the ceiling starts coming down again, and the door's closing, and then there's that awesome part where he kind of pushes her through the door and Short Round through the door, and then his hat falls off when he's going under the door, and then he just reaches through and pulls the hat back. The classic Indy shot. Love that. And then I want to know what you think. I know that this is maybe not your favorite part of the film, the whole ritual aspect when they're in the temple and the heart ripping out. And what do you think about that? Because I like it.
Didn't work for me.
Okay.
I'm not big. At least there was somewhat of an explanation in Raiders. It is the Ark of the Covenant. That is something that has been biblically documented. There was no, at least as far as I know, documentation of anything even remotely similar to what was happening in this film happening. So it didn't connect for me. The ripping of the heart and then the dropping into the lava pit, and you watch the heart catch fire as the body burns. It didn't work for me. And then you have the voodoo later on where, the Maharaja has the voodoo doll of Indy, and he starts stabbing him. I thought it was just, it didn't work for me. It really didn't work for me as an Indy film. It was not an Indy film to me. I mean, Indy's whole thing as an archaeologist is to preserve history. I mean, this was a trip to get these rocks that were, he was doing it for the right reasons, but it didn't follow the Indy storyline to me at all,
I think you're wrong. This is a classic Indy story. I mean, we disagree on it, but
yeah, you have a right to your opinion.
Absolutely, and you as well. So I think that maybe we can agree on. Let's move to the next sequence where Indy's hypnotized. At that part, I am a little disconnected when he's kind of hypnotized by the blood and everything. I don't know. I like to just kind of forget about that part. But the escape from the mine, to when they're all on the rickety bridge and they're falling down, and the bridge comes down, he has to chop the bridge with his knife, and then the guy's trying to fight him while he's dangling from the bridge, and then they're falling down into the river with the crocodiles eating them. I think that's very thrilling.
Okay, so two separate scenes. I'm gonna break this down into two parts.
Okay.
The escape from the mine, I did not like, where he's fighting on the conveyor belt with the rocks, and the rollers there, and they're trying to stay afoot, because if not they're going to get crushed, and then they escape on the mine cars. I thought it went on for too long.
Okay.
Especially the mine car scenes. Now, the scene on the bridge is the money shot from this film, and I loved it. I think it was great where, sort of Short Round knew what was going on, and he's telling Willie, hold on to something, because he knows the only way Indy, he's surrounded on this bridge, is that he's going to cut it down. The fight sequence where they're dangling there between the main ritual master guy and Indy is awesome, where he tries to pull out his heart. And I think that's a really neat scene.
Me too. And, they come, the military comes and saves him at the last second, and, they're trying to shoot the arrows at him. And we were watching it, and my mom says, "Oh, come on. Not one of those arrows hits Indiana Jones while he's on the bridge." I
think I said the exact same thing.
But yeah, so, and I will say, this movie, they take the rock back. They kind of just cut. It's a little abrupt. They get it back to the village, and they're all happy again. It's an okay ending to the film. It's not as strong of an ending as Raiders was, where there's that mystique, where you see it go to Area 51, even though you don't really know what that place is. And, it's kind of a bittersweet ending. This one is just, they kind of, he whips her around the waist, pulls her in, and kisses her, and then boom. I don't know.
They even have an exchange there. It ends on a comedic note. Mm-hmm. She says, "If you ever think I'm gonna do it," she starts sort of nagging him, so to speak, whining, nagging, and I hate that. I was not a fan of this film. Extremely disappointed. By this point, if I'm just watching these two films, I'm saying, why couldn't they have just left Indy alone with Raiders?
Okay, and you know what? After I think about it more, I think that Willie is pretty annoying. She does a lot of whining, so I'm going to lower mine to 8 out of 10 instead of 8.5.
And I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. So I think that's all we have to say about Temple of Doom. We do disagree a little bit, but I think here, at least for me, a return to excellence on the screen for Indiana Jones with The Last Crusade. Another
Absolutely.
film that I found brilliant from start to finish. I'm excited about this one. I'm going to give my score right away. I give this one a 9 out of 10. It's as close to Raiders as you can get for me. I loved this film. I love the opening sequence, the backstory of Indy. We get to learn a little bit more about him. I love the performance given by Sean Connery, a new member of this cast. I think he's awesome. There's just so many great things about this film. Again, I can't give it a higher score than Raiders, obviously, because it's not Raiders, but it is a magnificent film. And the scenes where they finally figure out where the Grail is and the obstacles, how Indy's figuring it out, how he's going to survive. I think the cinematography there is brilliant as well. So we'll talk about that all more in depth. 9 out of 10 for me. Dom, you go ahead about Last Crusade.
Yeah, gonna give it the exact same score as you, 9 out of 10. I love The Last Crusade. I do have to say that, nothing can be as good as Raiders, like we said before, but this one comes pretty close. And there's a few things that, let me start with one. My one thing that I knock it down a point for, and the reason why it's a 9 out of 10 for me is I think they still didn't quite nail the love interest in this
Yeah.
movie. They a definite improvement over Willie. She's an archaeologist. She has a little more depth to her. She's intellectual, and I like the part kind of moving on into more of the film, when they're in Nazi Germany and she sees all the books burning and you see the sadness in her eyes. So you're like, she's on. Spoiler alert: she turns out to be a Nazi, and I like that aspect. That it's kind of a twist. I don't know, but she still is, in love with archaeology and she doesn't like to see the books being burned. So I like that kind of depth to her character. But then I think that even though it's kind of explained that she slept with Indiana Jones and his father, which is kind of dumb, but I mean, I think it's funny, but it's whatever. And they
She
kind of fall in
she
love too
can't
fast.
she can't make up her mind. She is I don't get her as a character. On one side she's on Indy because she's in love, but she's a Nazi and she just doesn't pick a side. And then I think the end for her is so out of character. We'll talk about that a little bit later and going for the Grail. I think I'm not a fan. It was Alison Doody who played the role as Elsa Schneider. Um, eh,
Yeah,
she's much better than Willie. I agree.
yeah.
Much better, but she is no Marion.
Right, and I think they just can't nail it for some reason. They can't get it again the way it was in Raiders, but I like that they at least tried to improve it a little bit. She's not whining the whole time. At least she's kind of, they tried to go a different direction, make her the villain in some aspects. But that's my big negative with this one, is that her character doesn't work for most of the movie.
I agree. I very much agree.
Cool. So let's move on to the positives. Like you said, I think the major positive for me in this one is Sean Connery. And if you're a fan of James Bond like me, you're used to seeing him be an action hero, seeing him get the girl, seeing him, shoot up the bad guys. But in this movie, he's an English professor and he plays against type. And the interactions between him and Harrison Ford are the best parts of this movie.
Absolutely fantastic. I was a little worried when I first saw this movie because I grew up with my dad on Indiana Jones and on James Bond's film, know who Sean Connery is. A little bit worried to see how he would play this role as sort of a second fiddle to Indy, He does it perfectly, and I love the chemistry between the two characters, sort of this estranged father and son who can bond again over archaeology, but you see a change in his father, you see a change in Indiana as well. They learn from each other. I think it's a brilliant performance. It's totally understandable. Henry Jones Sr. and Jr., it's believable, and I think Sean Connery played it brilliantly.
Absolutely. And I think that what was I going to say? Oh, the whole motivation behind this one is a lot better than in Temple of Doom. That now that you
Yes.
think about it more, because in that one it was just kind of like he wanted to help these people, but in this one he wants to go rescue his father from Nazis, and even though he doesn't know it's Nazis at first,
Yeah.
but still there's this emotional connection behind his motivation to get on this journey, and I think that brings the audience along with him, and that kind of sets me up for a question I want to ask you. Maybe we should move a little faster on this one so we don't go too long. But memorable action scenes, I have a couple in mind, but I'm curious to see what are your favorites in this movie.
I mean, without a doubt, one sticks out in mind. The tank scene is brilliant. I love that scene where, they're trying to ram Indy on the side and he's hanging on. And meanwhile, his father and Brody are inside the tank, sort of, they're kind of useless, but they're kind of trying to help. I think that scene is amazing where Indy's, jumping around on the side of the tank. Another classic Indy sort of car chase-esque scene.
Yep.
It is awesome. Otherwise, though, I don't know necessarily if a certain action scene sticks out to me. I guess the escape from the Nazi compound is pretty neat.
How about when they're back to back on the chairs and Sean Connery has to light them on fire, but he drops it because he's a klutz.
Yep.
And then they light on fire, and then they get in the fireplace and they spin around and see the Nazis and then spin back.
Yep, that's exactly, the Nazi escape compound where, Indy starts the boat and lets it go so they, they think he went off, but then they hide in the boxes. It's a great scene.
Yep.
It's not so much an action scene as much as an adventure scene.
Yeah.
But where they're underneath the library in Venice and, looking for they find the tablet and then he pops up and, don't you just love Venice as he comes up from the sewer? But then you have the awesome boat chase scene as well with the knights who are protecting the Holy Grail and the secrets. I'm trying to think. There's one other scene I wanted to talk about here action-wise. Oh, I mean, it's not really action. It's more adventure. But, passing the 3 tests in order to get to the Grail room, I think.
And his father's been shot, so you're really behind everything the urgency of it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and
one more scene. I'm sorry.
No, of course.
When they're on the blimp and they escape on the airplane and they're being shot at and Sean Connery shooting and he destroys the tail of the airplane. I mean, comedy, action, suspense, great scene.
Yeah, and then he takes out his umbrella and uses the birds to knock down the plane.
Mm-hmm.
And, I love the interactions there, and I love every time Indy kills somebody or gets ahead of someone and murders someone. He looks at his dad and then his dad's
yeah.
I love those little tidbits. You don't need any dialogue. It's just the facial expressions, the interactions, the chemistry. It's amazing, and I think we should cap this one off with, that final sequence where they find the 700-year-old knight in the Holy Grail chamber, and having to choose the right cup. Or I guess what would we say, chalice? I guess.
Grail, yeah. Yeah,
Grail. Yeah. So, and here's my one question. I don't know if they ever explain it. Is Indiana Jones and his dad immortal after this?
That is a fantastic question. I think maybe that'll be touched on in 2022 in Indy 5.
I don't know, dude. That's one negative I had too, is that they both drink the Holy Grail water, right?
Does his dad drink the water, or does he just pour the water over his wounds?
He does that, but he also drinks it too.
Okay, that's a great point. That's a fantastic question that I had not thought about. I don't know. I love how they discover. Just jumping back real quickly. I love how they figure out which one is the Holy Grail. You have sort of the vein. It's not he's not a Nazi, but he's the guy who's been assisting the Nazis. And he's sort of, I can tell it's this one. He picks out this, gold and jewel adorned cup to drink from and drinks it. He has chosen poorly. But then Indy, how he deduces, well, Jesus Christ was a carpenter. He wouldn't have one of these golden orange. He picks the simple clay cup, and that's how he knows it. Once again, using his mind, using his ideas of archaeology, and knowing, what a cup would look like for a carpenter in the time that Jesus Christ was alive. I thought was really, really a smart way to make it. Indy wasn't just punching his way out of something. That's how he was able to deduce it. But then at the end, you get sort of what I thought was a mediocre ending where, the ground opens up because they say that it cannot pass the seal on the ground, and Elsa goes back for it and falls into the abyss, and then Indy's thinking about it, but Sean Connery saves him. I thought, okay. I thought it was out of character for Elsa. Once again, she can't decide what she wants. Is she in it for love? Is she in it for her country? Is she in it because she wants glory? She can't really decide what she wants as a character.
Yeah, and I think what the meaning of it is that the Grail is so enticing that it almost even persuaded Indiana Jones to go for it himself, and it's almost hypnotizing. But I think the most powerful part of the movie is when his father says, he doesn't call him Junior, how has been the whole movie. He hates being called Junior.
Yep.
He looks him in the eyes. He says, Indiana, you have to come this way, or he says something like he says it's
Yeah, I
not
think
worth it.
let it go, or it's not worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's a great way to cap it off, and then they all ride off into the sunset.
Yep.
I love
Love
it.
it. Love it. Yeah. I agree. So 9 out of 10 for both of us. This is a fantastic film. Indy goes on hiatus now. So this
Yep.
film was released, 1987, I believe.
I think it's
Just check the date.
89.
89, yeah. So then we don't see Indy for quite a while. And then all of a sudden, you start seeing the trailers. Indiana Jones is back. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Sigh. So this film was released in 2008. So almost 20 years after the previous Indiana Jones film. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about myself for this film. This film came out around Memorial Day weekend. I went and saw it. I loved movies as a kid. This was the first film I ever walked out of disappointed with a film. I could go in and see terrible, terrible movies and still be happy. This movie, I walked out disgruntled from the theater. How bad it was after seeing the other 3 Indiana Jones films. Now, recently I rewatched it. I told myself I never would. I did. I was pleasantly surprised. It was not as bad as I remember it being. I give this one a 6 out of 10, slightly better than Temple of Doom. I hated Temple of Doom. I know that's sort of blasphemous, giving this a higher score than any of the films, but it's how I feel.
Yeah. For me, I think that this is easily the worst one. I think it's nowhere. I mean, Temple of Doom has its flaws, but I think this one has flaws, and it's not just that. It's character motivation. It's parts of the story that are just misdirections. Don't get me wrong. There's parts of this movie I do enjoy. Namely, some people have a problem with him. I think Shia LaBeouf is passable in this film.
Yeah.
He has a believable performance, but I think that the main thing they messed up on, which is the reason I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10, they didn't nail the action. Indiana Jones is an action hero, and they did not deliver. At one point, Shia LaBeouf starts swinging on vines, and I remember rolling my eyes in the theater. I was like, oh
So
my
that is
God.
a major turning point in this film for me. When Shia LaBeouf starts swinging on the vines, so you've got the car chase scene, which is classic Indy to me, between the Russians and Indy, and they're racing through the jungle, and Shia LaBeouf gets thrown out, but he sees the monkey swinging, and he starts swinging. Ridiculous. I agree with you.
It's
And from
akin to
that
that. Oh, sorry. It's akin to that part in the Lost World where his Jeff Goldblum's daughter just starts doing gymnastics out of nowhere.
Yes,
It's a
absolutely.
Spielberg classic misstep there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, from that point of the movie on, it's about the halfway point. I do not like the entire second half of this movie.
Me
But
too.
to me,
Yeah.
the first half of this movie is kind of classic Indy. I mean, how do we start this film? We're back in Area 51 in the warehouse where all these things are. I mean, we even see the Ark. They're going through the chase scene in the in the warehouse or in the flight hangar at Area 51, and a box gets destroyed, and we see the Ark again. I think it's classic Indy, throwing with, following the magnets to find what they're looking for, which is the body of this alien or this extraterrestrial. Probably paying homage there to a ET, I'm sure.
And like you said, I think I'm on the same page with you. At the beginning of this movie, I remember watching in theaters, very excited, and seeing the sequence at Area 51, I was like, we're back. Okay, this is going to be a great film. But they just started making mistake, and by the end, I was intrigued by what was going to happen, but the delivery and the ending, I wanted to walk out of the theater.
Yeah, I think we agree. Yeah. I will say some other positives, though. I know a lot of people don't like it. I don't, and I do. I go back and forth. I have a love-hate relationship with the nuke test scene where he hides in the refrigerator to survive the nuclear blast.
I like it.
I don't think it's believable, but I like they tie in, nuclear warfare because it's a film that takes place in the Cold War era. So I think it's important to the film. I enjoyed that scene, and I enjoy that he figures out that the refrigerator's lined with lead, so he'll be able to protect himself.
Yeah.
Now, after that, we're introduced to Shia LaBeouf. My one complaint with this character, because I don't mind him, I think he's kind of cool. My one complaint with him is that he's sort of playing just a a character type. He's playing. If you wrote on the sideline, in the description of the script, Mutt, he goes by Mutt. 50s greaser. That's what he played. That's exactly what he played. And there's a scene where they're in the diner and the jocks and the greasers sort of get into a scuffle because he punches one of the jocks. I thought that was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm on the same page with you there. But I do like, I think, let me say this. I have not watched this one. I think I've seen it twice, but I watched it once in the theater, tried to give it another chance when I was a few years older. Did not like it again, and I promise, kind of like you, I'm never going to watch this one again. So for this review, I did not watch it again, so my memory is a little fuzzy, but I do remember being entertained by him. I think he has a motorcycle chase.
Yeah, so there's a big motorcycle chase right after that fight scene, and there's some great moments. It's a great chase scene, but not only that, there's also some, once again, homage to the older indie films. There's a scene they crash into a statue at the university that Indy's a lecturer at, a professor at, and the statue, the head falls into their lap, and it's the head of Brody from it's a statue that's been erected of Brody, who's in of course, a major character in The Last Crusade. But yeah, that's a neat scene, definitely. And there's some cool car chases as well. Of course, the motorcycle chase comes to mind, but also the chase through the jungle before Shia Labeouf starts swinging through the trees, where they're sort of sword fighting on the backs of the cars, because you hear from Shia Labeouf, he went through prep school and he, learned to fence, so he's fending for himself, which was kind of neat. But then, they drive the car off the edge and, through the waterfalls, and somehow they survive falling all those waterfalls. There's the giant ants that are eating people, and, they're able to protect themselves because they have the skull. I thought that was a bit ridiculous. Marion's back in this film, which is kind of cool. And that gives you sort of the connection to Indy and Shia LaBeouf, his spoiler alert, estranged son.
It's just to play on nostalgia. I like her character still. But the chemistry is still there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's all she's there for, There's some, I will touch on one scene that I truly love from this film, classic Indy, where they're falling, it's not quicksand, it's dry sand, and they're falling. And he goes, "Oh, I'll go grab something." He grabs a snake and throws it. He said, just call it something else. Tell me to grab onto something else. Grab the rope. And he finally grabs onto that snake, and they pull him out, thinking he's like, maybe I'll touch the bottom, because he's just so terrified of that snake. I thought that was a pretty cool scene. But then, the whole second part where we get to the aliens who are traveling through dimensions to gather knowledge, it just, that was a little over the top for me. And then it's Cate Blanchett, I believe, who's our villain. And,
does not work.
Talking to I need to know more, with their fake Russian accent.
Oh.
You like to use the term mustache twirler. Yeah, definitely. I think she's a mustache twirling villain here. Her only motive is to sort of be an obstacle for Indy.
Yeah. I just kind of yawned unintentionally, but that's how I feel about her character in this film.
Yeah.
And then how do you feel about the ending? Remind me the specifics. I feel like there's a church and a marriage involved or something like that.
So Indy and Marion are getting married, and they're walking down the aisle, and the wind blows. The door opens, and the wind blows, and Indy's hat comes in. And Shia LaBeouf goes to pick it up, and you think he's going to put it on, and Indy grabs it and puts it back on, and the Indy theme plays, which sort of will set us up most likely for our 2022 Indy 5 if it does come out.
I don't know, dude. I don't think they should make another one.
Here's the bottom line. To me, Harrison Ford is just as awesome in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as he is in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. No matter his age, he is so brilliant in these films. There are other problems with all the films that make them less than Raiders. Those problems are not Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
So I would, no matter what, I would go pay the admissions price to go sit down and watch another Indiana Jones film just on the basis of how great Harrison Ford is.
Absolutely. And I think you're right. I think I know he's going to come back. I think that they were planning on rebooting it with Chris Pratt at some point. I think that was a bad decision, and I'm glad they didn't go through with that. He's Indiana Jones. They need to keep it as long as he can. And I don't know, dude. I need to know who's directing the new one. I feel like if it's Spielberg, it could be good. If it's another director I know of that could do well with it, I'd be happy. But I need to know who's directing it. I need to know their track record, their filmography.
All
But
right,
yeah.
so here's what I do have. If they haven't yet, so it will be a Disney film, of course. They have not released a name of a director yet. It does not look like it, but there is a fifth Indiana Jones film planned to be released July 29th, 2022, and it is. They do have a director. It is not Steven Spielberg. It is James Mangold who will be directing it.
Ah, that's right. Okay, I remember reading that. So, okay,
Yes.
then let me change my opinion now that I remember that. You know who James Mangold is, Ryan?
So he directed the Wolverine films, right? He directed Logan and X-Men Origins Wolverine, and then
No,
just
it just
directed.
he just directed The Wolverine, which is the one where he goes to Japan. I know you haven't seen him, but there's
Okay,
one
no.
where
So
he goes to
I've seen
Japan. Yeah.
Origins. My bad.
Okay, so yeah, Origins wasn't directed by him. It's
Got
one
it.
of the
And
worst
he also
movies I've ever
directed.
seen.
You don't like Origins? I like Origins.
I
All right, we'll
hate
talk about that.
Wolverine
We'll
Origins.
table
Yeah.
that conversation for another time. He
Yeah, so
also
then he
directed
does
Ford versus Ferrari, right?
absolutely.
Which I've heard is a great film. I haven't gotten around to seeing it yet,
Me
but I
neither.
heard it
Yeah.
was great.
So yeah, I am excited to see what he could do. He's a great action director. Um, yeah, love James Mangold. So I'm excited to see if he can pull it off.
All right. Well, I think we've had everything to say about these four films. We can go through our list. They're pretty similar, just a little flip flop at the bottom between the two of us. But for me, bottom of my list would be Temple of Doom, followed by at third, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Second, Last Crusade at 9 out of 10, and then a 10 out of 10. As we said, a perfect film for both of us would be Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Absolutely, yeah. So for me, we have the same top of the list, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Number two for me is gonna be Last Crusade, just like you. And then after that, I'm going to go three, Temple of Doom. And at the bottom of the list for me, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Swinging on the monkey vines almost made me walk out, but I'm glad I stayed till the end. There is some memorable parts of it, I will say. That's why it's not a bad movie. I was close to giving this one a 4, but it's a 5. It's, a disappointment, but it's not a bad movie.
All right, so that'll just about wrap it up for Indy for us. What do we have planned for next week, Tom? Have we decided anything yet? Have we solidified any plans?
Well, I know we've been talking about the Christopher Nolan series we want to do, just kind of talk about all his films, but with everything that's going on with COVID, it's kind of up in the air whether or not that film will actually come out in theaters on August 12th, and whether or not we'll actually want to go on August 12th. Maybe it's going to be still too dangerous, from our points of views to meet up and go see that, or just see it on our own. So we just want to play that by ear, but we'll try to do the Christopher Nolan films because we do like those. But I think next week what we're going to try to do is move on to the Pixar films, right, Ryan?
Yeah, I think we're going to dive right in. We'll break that up. Of course, I believe there's upwards of maybe 20 Disney Pixar films now, starting with Toy Story. Of course, Soul was planned to be released this summer once again, sort of tabled with COVID. But we'll get a chance to dive in on some of those, maybe discuss our views of those films, some great films that we both grew up with. In fact, I believe all of them except for the original Toy Story came out in our lifetime.
Yep.
So really excited to talk about those. But I think that'll take us out for this week. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Top of the List. My name is Ryan Barnett, RB. You can find me on Instagram at RB_the_SID. Don't forget here to like, comment, and subscribe. Dom, you want to take us out?
Yeah, so I'm Dom, and you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Dom Gonzalez 48, DOMGONCALES 48. And like Ryan said, subscribe for more weekly content. Every Monday, we're going to drop a video. And I do want to leave a little tag here at the end for those of you who have listened to the end. I want to try and do the first TV review. I just finished watching Dark Season 3, the final season. Got to watch the series finale. Spoiler alert, I was blown away. I really enjoyed it. But I want to leave, I think I'm going to drop maybe a 10, 12-minute video sometime in the future with just my thoughts and opinions. I know Ryan hasn't seen it, but we're going to try to do that. And then when his favorite show, Umbrella Academy, comes out, whenever he finishes watching that season, he can give his thoughts and opinions on that show. So looking forward to that. But until then, we'll see you next time on Top of the List. Later.